Yeah, hello. This is meeting number 33 of the Clojure Visual Tools group. And today we are humbled to have the amazing Nikita Prokopov. And we are 8, 9 people at the moment. Maybe a couple more will join in a moment. We usually begin by introducing ourselves, so everybody is invited to say something about themselves. And today's topic is a Clojure workflow for Sublime Text, which is what we'll soon dive into. So yeah, let us begin. Maybe Jarkko, would you like to say something about yourself to begin with? Oh, we cannot hear you now, Jarkko. Oh, never mind. Yeah, so maybe Mikhail, would you like to say something?
Sorry, my
yeah.
youngest watching TV. So I'm a software developer. Mostly I use Clojure for just home development for home projects. I'm primarily .NET developer and I use C# and Svelte. Hope maybe at some point I'll find a job related with Clojure. But yes, right now I'm living I live in Norway. That's probably it from me.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Yeah, Alexei, would you like to say something? Hello, if you wish.
Hello, my name is Alexei Konoplev. So I'm a developer in the past, but a manager right now. And I'm exploring Clojure just for my own knowledge and for my own enjoyment. I do not apply it at work, so it's just my personal interest into this technology. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Hello, Andre. Would you like to say something?
Hi, hello. I'm Andre, software developer, originally from South Africa. Live in London at the moment, and I use Clojure for my work every day. Java background, but we've slowly migrated over to Clojure. So I basically use Clojure both on the server, on the JVM, and front-end Clojure Dart.
Yeah, fantastic. A future topic, we hope. Yeah, did you wish to say a little more, or did I?
No.
Oh, yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, about myself, I'm Daniel. My background is statistics and probability, sometimes with Clojure, sometimes with other things. Today, I'm mostly a community organizer at the Cycloj group. And maybe Tim, would you like to say something about yourself?
Hi, Tim from Sacramento, California, longtime Java and Python programmer and somewhat recent Clojure enthusiast looking to make that my go-to-prod language. And very excited to see this workflow.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And links by your Ryan. Maybe I couldn't get it right. If you wish to say something, links by your Ryan.
Hello. I'm backend developer using Rust and Go, and use Clojure for my pet projects only. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to meet you. And hello, Brian.
Brian, Ann Arbor, Michigan, University of Michigan here. Longtime developer, never used Clojure in a professional setting, but I've always been interested from a hobbyist point of view. Came at it from essentially, some background in Lisp and in Java. Currently unemployed, so I'm keeping my hands as busy as I can. And this is Bubba, everybody. So I guess one other note is my daughter is in London at the moment, studying for her master's at the University College of London. So there's a London connection there too. So
Thank you so much. Was it Baba? Oh,
Baba, yeah, B-U-B-B-A, kind of like a, you know,
oh, yeah,
so
yeah. Baba. Thanks.
so.
Yeah. And hello, Jaakko.
Yeah, I have the backup system here working. Yeah, I'm Jarkko from Finland, and I'm a freelance programmer, mostly working with PHP and Python systems because that's what's been easily available. But I've been playing with Clojure on my own time for a while already, and yeah, I'm into tools quite a bit, and Clojure has a really nice tool set. I use Emacs related tools, and yeah, that's kind of my hobby at the same time, and also interested in the data science side of the Clojure tools. That's something I've been finding use in recent work projects also, and yeah, learning more about that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and hello, Nikita. Nikita, even though everybody knows you, maybe you would like to say something about, how have you been, what you care about nowadays, and then we can begin with the talk.
Sure. Hi, I'm Nikita, Nikitonsky, or just Tonsky. I've been using Clojure for a while now, more than 10 years probably. Yeah, professionally right now I work at InstantDB, trying to build modern Firebase using Clojure and TypeScript. Lived in Berlin. Yeah, you have a number of open source libraries like DataScript and RAM and clojure-plus, Clojure Sublimed that I will be talking about today. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great. So now we can begin with the talk. And as we said earlier, we will use the chat to ask questions. At least in this part, we'll use the chat to ask questions. And maybe sometimes I will tell Nikita if there is anything important in the chat. Afterwards, we'll have more time to chat. So let us begin if you wish.
Yay. Okay, yes. One sec. Share screen. It is sharing now. Move to bottom. Okay. Can I hide this? Hide floating meeting control. Perfect. Okay. Then it's this. We did this, and we need this, right? Maybe. Yes. Okay, perfect. So yeah, hi. Yeah, I'm going to talk today about Clojure Sublimed, which is basically my workflow to work with Clojure in Sublime Text. Yeah, okay. Sorry, getting distracted by all the controls. Like this. Yeah, so plan includes, like, I want to talk about basically everything that constitutes my workflow, right? Not just Sublime Text, but also some libraries that I use every day. So there's like overview, why Sublime, why Clojure Sublimed, Sublime Executor, which is a plugin, clj-reload, and Clojure-plus are just Clojure libraries that everybody can use, but I use them every day and find them very useful. So I'll talk about those as well. There is a lot of detail to cover, so I'll try to be brief, but yeah, I also try to illustrate, like show how it actually works, right, where I can. But yeah, but the nature of this, as I was writing this talk, the nature of the problem is like there is a lot of small decisions. There is not one huge idea, right? There is a lot of small details that together form a workflow that I'm personally like very happy about and enjoy using. Okay, let me see if this could be. This should be actual note. No, zoom to fit. whatever. So first point that we want to talk about, Sublime Text. Sublime Text is a text editor, right? Like Java, like VS Code, or I don't know, Atom, whatever. It's very minimal of that modern, if we're speaking about modern analogs. So there are several reasons why I like Sublime Text. It is very fast. This is way faster than VS Code, for example, to start up, to use, to do whatever. It is also not a very actively developed application, right? So as far as I know, it's like 3 people working on it or something like that. It's been around for a while, also probably like 20 years or something, very long time. There's been only 4 versions of it, so it's like it's not very actively developed, which is a downside and an upside, right? And the fact that there is not enough free time for developers to do everything means that they have to focus only on essential features, which means that this editor is free of all the noise that, for example, VS Code has, right? There's no features that like barely or marginally useful. They're only very basic, but very fundamental features are there. Right? And another upside of this is it doesn't change. So I started using it, I don't know, 5-7 years ago. No, maybe actually less. But yeah, let's say 5. Right? And it hasn't changed much during that time. There have been updates, the feature here and there, but mostly it's basically the same editor. Everything like plugins still work, buttons are in the same place, nothing, most changes are like there's no noise. I can show you actually, yeah, because I want to illustrate what I'm talking about, right? Let me hide this. Okay, so this is Sublime Text. It's basically, as you can see, there's not much going on. There's a tab editor, the tree of files, which yeah, also has dots for changes, right? And not even colors, some icons. You click on files, you open them, and there is like some information, like which line you're on and stuff. As you can see, yeah, like the stuff that I like about it, for example, is there's no notification, for example, right? It goes under reject modernity. So like VS Code and JetBrains, they have lots of notifications that pop up and want something from you. Like Sublime is very chill about it. Like it just works, right? It doesn't bother you with its problem. So it's very different philosophy. It's older philosophy. So apps used to be like that, like most of them. Now the trend is different, but I like the old way better. What is important for me as well, it's not a terminal application, so it's not like Vim or NVim or Emacs. Also, Emacs probably not exactly a terminal application, not always. Because I don't really like terminal, I don't see the point. I like graphical UI, nice icons, crisp icons, and all the power of the computer, as long as it's fast, right? So graphical applications also can be fast. Sublime Text is one example of them. So that's why I ended up on it. There's not much choice really. Like if you're looking for fast, lightweight editors, so then it's like probably Sublime, Vim, and that now, but that is VC funded and AI focused. So yeah, the downsides are that it's not very popular, right? And it means less plugins, less features. So maybe something that you need or want might not be there, or might not be done like in a quality that you want, right? And you probably have better chance in VS Code with more popular languages. It's probably way better stories than Sublime. But for my needs, like I figured I like everything else so much that I'm just ready to suck it up, like, and use what's there. Clojure Story, I didn't like a lot when I started. So I started about 5 years ago. Even the syntax was bad, and I don't remember if Tatcain was there. So like there's one alternative plugin for Clojure for Sublime. It's called Tatcain. But yeah, I figured it's great, but I didn't really evaluate it very deeply, so I don't have comparison here. But I wanted to give it my spin, my go. So I want every detail, like control everything basically. So that's how the Clojure Sublime started. Let's move to Clojure Sublime. So it's a plugin for Sublime Text, right? There's package control is a way to install plugins, and it's over there. It has 2K installs, which is not bad for Sublime Text. It's not a very popular editor, and Clojure is not a very popular language. So like, it's like Sublime Text is maybe 1% of all users, right? And Clojure is 1% of all programmers. So you multiply 1% by 1%, and you get 0.01%. That's a good number, I think. It's also on GitHub, so it is in GitHub, but package control is the way Sublime packages are distributed, right? So it's an open source project. Everybody can look into it, contribute to it. I had some great contributions over the years. As you can see on the graph, it's mostly started in 22, right? So the first time, I was working on syntax grammar in 19. Then I just used that for a while without REPL even. So I liked Sublime so much, I used it without REPL. But then I figured, okay, it's time. I should finally take the matter in my own hands, build a REPL for it, and then my setup will be perfect. So that's started in 2022, and it's been going like strong until now, basically, right? It has Clojure part and Python part, so most of the plugin part is written in Python, as that's the language Sublime Text uses for plugins, right? Clojure part is mostly for REPL, the payload that is uploaded to the server to run REPL server, basically. Yeah. We'll get there eventually. I'll explain this in details, but that's the overview, right? I can also, in the spirit of show, not tell, right? So this is basically running Clojure Sublime already, right? So the syntax highlighting you see in here is from Clojure Sublime. The REPL integration, so we'll have to run REPL, socket-repl here. And if you look at the bottom corner, I press Ctrl-J and we connected the localhost REPL, the same port, right? And I can now eval code like this. And you can see the 3 and 7 evaluation results for these two forms. So that's the basic utility of this plugin, right? Inline evaluation of forms, basically what REPL does, but there is a lot of details. So let's start. The first piece of Clojure Sublime is grammar, syntax grammar, and it's basically what Sublime Text itself uses to do syntax highlighting, right? So in order to get all these colors, Sublime Text needs to parse the source file, mark it up like, okay, this is a comment, this is like a definition, this is a string, and blah, blah, blah. And then use color scheme to show the colors, right? The story of the grammar is interesting. So the first version, as I said, that came with Sublime Text, I believe it came from TextMate, which is also super old text editor, right? And like technically most of grammars that we have today are one way or the other direct descendants of original TextMate grammars. Sublime evolved this already. They have better syntax. They have more capabilities in the way they define grammars. But and the new thing is also tree-sitter. That is not a Sublime, but that's probably where this lineage breaks and these grammars are written from scratch. Yeah, so yeah, I wasn't happy with the grammar that was inside Sublime Text, wrote my own, then Sublime improved the grammar. Somebody, I don't remember the name of the person who did that, but improved it significantly. So now it's more or less workable, but still I have a lot more features that I believe are useful, right? So on the top you can see how it looks in default Clojure Sublimed, in default Clojure syntax in Sublime Text. On the bottom you can see how it looks in Clojure Sublime syntax, right? So it's like before, after, so top, bottom. After is what I built basically. So we highlight, for example, like nested parentheses, new symbols, namespaces. This is details that default syntax doesn't provide, so there's no way to highlight like differently namespace, for example, of a symbol from the name of the symbol, right? This is the easy part, like so both me and default grammar do that, so it's not super mind-blowing. The hard part is actually to do this ignore, like hashtag underscore stuff, metadata stuff, like this, I don't know, caret, and then a form, right? Quoting, also one single quote and then a form after that, and unquoting when you can, inside a quoting form, you can unquote something. So it is, like Clojure is not hard language to parse. And probably if you had like a real programming language in your hands, that wouldn't be a problem, really. For Sublime Text, though, it is hard because the grammar that you can define, it relies on the fact that things have beginning and end, right? So for example, like if you parsing parentheses, like here, ABC, the parentheses or the bracket, right? It opens and it closes, so it has beginning and end. It's easy. The fact that this quote starts and then you need to consume only one form and that's it. Like this is hard. It shouldn't be hard, but it is in Sublime Text. So that's why default implementation doesn't do this. But we do, right? Because we spent extra time and effort. My head almost exploded trying to figure this out. But in the end, I'm very happy. We can even do this nested ignores, right? So when you type 2 and then it consumes 2 forms instead of 1, or you can like do mix and match them, like, and you can do ignore, then metadata is an X, and then ignore will apply to X and stuff like this. Crazy stuff. I also want to show you, like, just briefly overview how it looks like. So grammar looks like this. It's a YAML file, and you basically define like this is forms. The form can be comment, deref, var, line, comment, metadata, right? And like what is comma, what is deref, and there is here. If we look really, yeah, this is probably not normal forms. So this is stuff that's easy to parse. Keyword, integer, float, whatever, lots of stuff. That's roughly how it looks like. I don't need you, right? So yeah, this is much nicer to use. Like, let's say, like the fact that ignored forms are grayed out thanks to my parsing is a huge improvement in like day-to-day experience. This is probably the most significant part, right? Because it's nice to see that this code is not executed, you can safely ignore it. Nice to see it visually. Another part where we improved over state of the art is error detection. Again, default is top, after our version is the bottom. Here, like, yeah, a lot of stuff you can write in Clojure that would not be considered a valid form. And yeah, it's nice when your editor actually agrees with Clojure implementation, right? So, like, my take on this is it should be as exact, as precise as possible to match actual implementation, because like you don't want your editor to highlight something as a keyword when in fact it's not a keyword and it's actually a mistake, right? Invalid form at all, right? If like the mistake might happen because there are two different implementations, right? The Clojure implementation does its thing. Here you write YAML with regex that does its own thing, right? So it's two different implementations. So obviously there will be edge cases where it disagrees and doesn't match. But as the closer you can get, the more you can trust your highlighter, the easier it is to use, basically, so you don't have to down. Yeah, also implementing this, I learned a lot of funny edge cases, like, for example, keywords with 1 slash is valid, keyword with 2 slashes is invalid, with 3 slashes is valid again. Keywords ending with colon are invalid for nobody knows why. But it's just a quirk of Clojure implementation, but like we need to match that, right? Or the fact that .1, for example, parses as a symbol instead of a number. It's also kind of weird, but it is what it is. Yeah, we even detect like custom tags with incomplete dates and stuff like that. Yeah, that's a grammar. If I can pause here, if anyone has any questions, or it's all right to continue. Is like...
Yeah, there are no questions in the chat.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That'd
let's
be
keep
great. Yeah.
let's keep going then. But like dramatically, there's a pause. Like we switch to the next topic, right? Color scheme. Okay, perfect. So we have grammar. We have everything parsed. We know what is what, where there is a keyword, where is a bracket, where is a comma, and stuff. What's a comment, right? Now we need to display it somehow. And for that, we need color scheme. So color scheme actually is built in Clojure Sublimed. It started as a separate project called Alabaster, which was like, it looked roughly the same. But then I figured, because I parse a lot more about Clojure specifically, like namespaces and symbols and stuff like that, or all different types of comments, it deserves its own color scheme that will take advantage of this like extra information. Because like normally color schemes are very generic, right? They like, okay, we know about numbers, keywords, strings, and definitions. Like you can set colors. The upside of it is it can color any language, right? Any language has strings, definitions, blah, blah, blah. But you can also make a color scheme that works best for your parser. So then these two can work together, actually. So that's what we did, right? So the first principle, the very important principle that I use for this is use less colors, right? So the problem with many color schemes, not all of them, but many of them, is that they highlight everything, right? They use color for everything. So like, for example, looking at this, it's really hard to tell. This is just a random example I found online, like, but it's actually a screenshot from real code. Look at this, it's really hard to tell what's the default color even is. Like what, if it's just a text, like what color would it be? Like, is it red or blue or this one? So everything is highlighted here, right? But the problem is this, is if everything is highlighted, nothing is highlighted. You can't really understand important parts if every part is somehow like has different color, right? So in order for something to stand out, you need to mute everything else down. So that's the principle we use in our color scheme. We highlight stuff. We don't highlight everything. We use it very precise. There's only like 5 probably different colors, and I can remember like another test is for me is if I can remember every color that I use and what it means, right? I use color for strings, for keywords, or like all the constants, numbers, and keywords together, for definitions and for comments, right? And grayed out for punctuation. So that's it. Like there's the most of the text is actually black or white, and the rest is like sometimes it's roughly highlighted. So this is the same code at the bottom, but you can easily see, for example, how the functions are called, right? Because they're highlighted. Like in here, it's really hard to see that the add the name of the functions. It is important, right, to see, but it's really hard to figure it out from the highlighting. In our version, it's like it just stands out, right? So that's the first principle. Using the same one, I don't really use random parentheses. It's slightly different, but there is a reason why. Okay, we'll get to it. But so right now we're talking about rainbow parentheses. I know why it is useful, right? I can see that, but I don't like the visual noise that they introduce, right? So instead, what we do instead, I found, like over the years, I found a compromise that I started as well with random parentheses. The compromise that I use is the parentheses on the very top level have one color and all the nested ones have different color, right? So using this, I usually can see easily like if it's properly closed or not at the end, and the rest is like, it's usually okay to figure out, right? It's usually obvious what is nested or what's not. But so the most important part is I know when my forms are well balanced. The rest is, I don't know, at least easier to read. The second reason why I don't use random parentheses is they don't work as well on bright color schemes. So I know that most of the people, it's actually been tested a couple of times. So from the statistics that I have, 70% of developers like dark color schemes, right, like this. I am in the other 30%, so I like bright color schemes. So this doesn't work for me. So in bright color scheme, you can barely see the color, so extra visual noise is not worth it. But in my scheme, again, the top level is different colors than the rest, and this nice, subtle, but conveys enough information to be useful. There's another interesting fact, and I only realized it recently, actually. Again, maybe because, so I don't know what is the cause and what is the consequence here, right? But I guess, so color text looks better on dark background. And basically that means, so if you, in a dark color scheme, dark background level, right, you can use pretty bright colors. Like you can use white and bright blue, bright green, bright red, all of them, right? And they look nice, right? They're bright, like saturated colors. Nice to look at. When you switch to light color scheme, you can't do that. You can, because the contrast will be too low, right? You need to use relatively dark colors, right? And the dark versions of blue, green, or like purple, whatever, they look very similar to each other, and they look not as nice. So that's a downside. So like, if from pure aesthetical viewpoint, if I only had a choice between these two options, I would definitely pick a dark one, because just because I have to look at color text, and it is better in dark color scheme. The solution that I found for myself that works very well, I think, is to use background colors, right? So if you can't make text, because text has to be dark, the letters has to be dark, if you can't put a nice color on it, you can put it around it. Like you can do this background thing when the bright green or blue or red colors are used to fill like huge areas, so they are more visible and still nice to look at, right? And the text inside them remains dark. So this is like best of both worlds, right? I'm looking at a bright color scheme that I like more, and I'm looking at nice colors. So this is what we do, right? So we have the bottom two versions. The bottom two versions. So dark version of Clojure color scheme is like this. Let me actually show you. So scheme, Clojure, so we have light version with background highlighting, and we have dark versions that just use normal color text. Boom. Okay. Next. This is about usage of color, right? We also do several interesting, in my opinion, things in color scheme, so I want to cover them now, right? So one of them is comments. So in most color schemes, comments are grayed out because it's, I don't know, I guess the thinking goes, if it's a comment, it's less important, so let's make it gray, basically. Which is sometimes works okay, but what actually happens, right, in programs, I figure there are two types of comments, right? The comment that like just commented out code, disabled code, the code that you don't want to run, that is like commented out temporarily because it's not important, you don't want it right now, or for some whatever reason, right? Disabled code. And the second type of comment is information, where you write something in your human language saying something like, this is where we do blah, 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 right? Or this is important because blah, blah, blah. Or the reason we are doing this is because blah, blah, blah. And that type of comment is very important, right? This actual information, it is arguably more important than the code itself. So yeah, this is like subtle semantic difference, but I feel it's very important to understand it. And for a long time, I was just like, the Alabaster and this color scheme always started with super highlighted comments. So instead of hiding comments, I was bringing them up. Like if you look at this, like you can see yellow color, like it really stands out, right? So it shows you like this is important because you do something like, for example, here I annotate like sections of the code, and I arguably like these annotations are more important than the code itself because I can scan them more easily. If they were grayed out, it would be not as nice. But then, yeah, somebody brought to my attention that there's actually two types of comments: the important ones and just disabled code. So in Clojure, like one of the few languages that actually has tools to distinguish them, right? So we have disabled with a hashtag, and we have information with semicolon. Right, so I like this. This is why custom color scheme for Clojure, because in most languages there is only one type of comment, so you can only use one type of highlighting for it. Clojure we can use both, so like we do both, right? So in here, like this is disabled code, so it's grayed out, it's not important. This is information comments that say something, so it's like highlighted. So that's what we're doing. Another part is, yeah, this is like small things like what metadata, yeah, probably obvious why it is grayed out because it's less important than the actual code. The namespace on symbols was an experiment that I tried to see if I like it or not, right? And I like it a lot. Like actually, it helps you read what's going on. It helps you separate namespace from the symbol. Sometimes namespace is obvious from the name of the symbol, so you just read the right part and like you ignore the left, which is like why it's grayed out. So this part improved readability a lot, and I recommend everybody do the same in your editor of choice. And the third idea here is quoting and unquoting, right? So because I spent so much time improving parsing, now I can actually mark up regions that are fully quoted, and inside them I can detect unquoting and unhighlighted. So basically right here we see that most of it will be like returned as this, not interpreted, but this code, gensim, it will be run as a code, right? So it's not grayed out. In bigger code, like, yeah, this is probably a better example because you can see more clearly that it illustrates, okay, these parts are dynamic, the rest is less dynamic, it's just code that macro generates. So I like this as well. So I've been running it for a while now, and it's also, I think, very nice way to work with quoted forms. Yeah, so that was color scheme, right? Let's finish it. That's the next big part is REPL. We jumped over parser because at the last moment I decided the REPL should come first, but we will get to parser after that. So REPL, the most important part of Clojure experience here is ability to connect to REPL and evaluate stuff, right? As it stands right now, we support four different forms of REPLs. It's nREPL, like default nREPL without any extensions, without trying to modify anything, like what in the spec, and that's it, right? It's very bare bones. It's not perfect, but it gets you out of tricky situations when it's like nREPL is a standard, right? So it lets you connect to stuff that you don't have more fine-grained REPL implementation, right? It's like, for example, Babashka, for example, right? It has nREPL, but it doesn't have like lookup symbols or completions and stuff. But it talks to default nREPL, so you can use that. Right? JVM and REPL is kind of the same, but when you connect into JVM, we do some extra things, install some extensions, so it's slightly better experience. Clojure socket-repl JVM, right? So this is the best REPL experience that we have from client standpoint. So client support this best, right? So if you're in JVM, I recommend you use this. And Shadow.cl.js is like, it's basically nREPL, but you have to run one extra thing that selects which application or how it's called you're connected to. Because for some reason, Clojure script REPLs decided that they don't play by the rules of normal REPLs. They need extra form evaluated before you can use them. I can show, yeah, okay, let me show you, so REPL, right? There's socket-repl. No, okay, well, this is one. Connect to nREPL JVM, connect to raw nREPL, connect to socket-repl. And there somehow should be shadow as well. I'm not sure why it's not here. Oh, yeah, connect to shadow, so just, it doesn't have the word REPL. So we can do all of them, but I will be showing only socket-repl today. So socket-repl is, yeah, because a couple of features were really important to me when implementing this, right? The first one is inline evaluation. It is the way it was in Lighttable, and I like it a lot. In fact, like a lot of this is inspired by Lighttable, in fact. And I like it. I don't want the same experience. So for me, especially when working on a small laptop, right? I don't really understand when people have it like this, right? Like when you have your code over here and you have entire half of the screen just for your REPL. Like you click like something, press a key binding here, and you have like form sent over here, and you see what it evaluates to. It's nice because you have history, you can scroll past and forward, right? But the fact that it covers, like it takes half of your screen, I think it's extremely wasteful, and I don't like it at all. So what we do instead is, let me actually, okay, I killed it. Let me start REPL again. So I'll show you how to connect from a command line, right? We find socket-repl, ignore this to connect to socket-repl. It autofills support because it finds port file somewhere here, repl.port. This is not default for socket-repl, but if it is there, it will find it, right? And boom, and it shows the status over here, so we are connected, right?
Maybe, Nikita, is it good time to ask something?
Sure, yeah.
Maybe it makes sense to explain how to get the socket-repl running. So maybe it is unfamiliar to some people. Or maybe
yeah, this is, yeah, I'll show you, sure. Okay. This is yeah, okay, yeah, it's a good question because yeah, I didn't cover it, but this is important. Sure, connecting to REPL, right? So as I understand it, again, I don't really have an experience with Emacs at all. Like I never use it, right? Or IntelliJ, like Composure, NVim, whatever. Never, no other Clojure client except this, and I think a little bit of VS Code. But so I don't know how things are done there, right? But for me, when I was implementing this, I was like, I like to solve problems. Like you do one thing that covers a lot of ground, solves a lot of problem at all. But I don't like to do like many small decisions. So, okay, sorry for blabbing. But what I'm trying to say is the Clojure Sublime will not run your process for you, Clojure process for you, right? So this is because I figure there's a lot of ways to start Clojure program and REPL in Clojure program, right? You might have line in it. You might have boot. You might have just deps.eden, right? It might be a Clojure script. You might want to run it with a profile or some other stuff, or maybe with some environment variables. So there is a lot of variety in there. And I didn't want to implement a separate workflows for each one of them. So like this was like a design decision or scoping decisions. I just took it out of the picture, right? So basically what I'm saying is it's your problem to start REPL, but once it's running, Clojure Sublime can connect to it over TCP port. What it means in practice, right? So let's say, okay, let's see, actually, there is a script called socket-repl PI. This is unfortunate, actually, but yeah. But basically what it does is it chooses random port, writes this REPL file, which is will not exist. But normally what you would do is, let me try to figure this out. You don't need this, right? What you can do is, no. So it would look like, okay, port, let's say 5555, right? Except this server daemon false. And I think the way it works is you have to do it like that. Right, this will be a shell command to run socket-repl. We can replace this with clj. Let's try. Let's go to terminal. Increase font size. Let's try, see if it works. If I got everything correct, yeah, I think it's actually running. Okay, yeah, it's that like this is, so see, this is a problem of socket-repl, right? Okay, let me, a little bit more explanation here. So socket-repl is a REPL that comes with Clojure by default. And this is why I chose it as default implementation for Clojure Sublime, because it's built in. Every Clojure, whenever you run a Clojure process, there will be a socket-repl inside. You might not start it, like it needs to be started and it needs to be told which port to run on, right? But you need zero dependencies to run it. And so that's why I feel like it's the best choice for REPL to interact with. And REPL, in contrast, is a library. So you need to include it in your Clojure process. And you also need to start it, but you need to bring extra library, basically. Okay, so let's see. So we have port 555, right? So in theory, if I, let me disconnect here everything. Socket-repl, connect, type 5555 here, boom, it's connected, right? And if I try to print something, okay, is there a print here? Yeah, there's print, hello Sublime. Okay, let's eval this, right? We switch over here and then see hello Sublime. So yeah, we actually connected to this. If you want to start 10 REPLs, that's a bit trickier, but basically what you do is kind of something like this. I have a point later in the presentation where I'll show you briefly how I do this from Sublime. But yeah, basically starting REPL is out of the picture. So you can actually like do it in your init function. You can do it in a profile or whatever. I don't really get into this. So what I need is a port to connect to, and that's it. That's what Clojure Sublime is concerned about. Yeah, second point here is to print to stdout, right? I actually have, yeah, inline eval, I kind of showed it, right? Did I? I think I showed it. Like, yeah, boom, boom. So it is evaluated. And result is showed on the right. It's fine. It's actually usable. I was worried a little bit about it at first because I expect the result to appear right here, but there's no, like in Sublime it would be extremely hard. So I switched to default. This is default what Sublime can do, and it's actually pretty nice. Print to stdout. So this is the second point that I didn't like about existing REPL clients and nREPL specifically, right? So in nREPL, look, you started a process like this, right? You connected to it from here. And now if I would to eval something like this with nREPL, actually let's do it's an experiment. Let's switch to VS Clojure Sublimed, right? And there is a script to start nREPL, I believe. Okay, so this is nREPL, right? So if I print in here ABC, it shows result right here, right? The port is what? This is the port. Okay, let's do, oops. nREPL, connect to row nREPL, port, yeah, triggers port out, and let's do print, right? Boom. Where does result go? The problem here is that nREPL captures the output, right? I think it originates like the roots of the problem is oh my god, I'm pressing all the buttons, sorry. The root of the problem comes from the expectation that there will be a right panel where the REPL happens, right? And naturally, if you print something here, you want to see it inside your REPL panel, right? But Clojure Sublime doesn't come with a REPL panel, so we have nowhere to print it. So in this case, we only have inline evaluation, right? So in this case, a print, like the fact that nREPL captures output becomes a problem for us. We would expect the result to appear over here, but it doesn't because like we're not evaluating it in this REPL, we're evaluating it inside nREPL, which only exists inside Clojure Sublime, blah, blah, blah. There is a way to, I don't remember how, but there is a way to actually see this output. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on it now because I don't use nREPL that often, but it is here. Somehow you can make it appear, right? But the bigger problem here that I didn't like in existing REPL's implementation is that there is more than one way to output something, right? So when you do println, it goes to Clojure star out star, like out in earmuffs, right? And that is what nREPL captures. If you do println, it goes to standard output. So for example, if I did this in nREPL, right? We're still connected to it. Let me see. I think, yeah, this is it, right? And we connected to nREPL. So boom, we go, like, if I had this second panel, I wouldn't see a result here because nREPL doesn't capture system out, right? I would see it here, and I do see it here. Yeah, this is the string that we're seeing. But I wouldn't see it here. So this in my opinion, it's super confusing because basically what it does is it creates two places where to look for output. Some output goes to stdout, some output goes to nREPL output, right? And depending on how you print, you do println, you do system out println, you do logging with logger framework. Clojure test, I think, ignores out, like a dynamic out. It only uses the out that captures at the moment of initialization. You will see half of your results in one place and half of the other place, and that was really confusing to me. So this is again another decision to simplify stuff, right? And get rid of this output in the editor. We print to the std out always. That's basically the solution. Parallel evaluation. Yeah, this is okay. This is mostly like my beefs with nREPL, right? But it's actually like problems that I experienced in my experience with nREPL and that I think could be improved. nREPL also been around for a while, but again, it is created for this paradigm where you have a whole panel for the REPL, right? What was, parallel evaluation, yeah, right. So basically, I have it somewhere in here, I believe. Wait. Oh, no, I don't. Yeah, okay, sorry. Okay, let me, it's real quick. Let's remove this, let's say syntax closure and do thread sleep 1000, right? Or let's do like 3000. So sleep 3 seconds and calculate 1 plus 2, right? I still connected to nREPL, so I eval this and then immediately eval this. And you can see that until first evaluation finishes, we don't see the result of the second one, right? So the second one, even though it's like super fast, it is still blocked by the original one. Sometimes that's what you want. I mean, maybe sometimes it is what you want, but not, I guess, not the most popular case. So, like, okay, I'm sorry again for bluffing, but blabbing. What it means is like sometimes you have something like server start server, right? And if you eval this in nREPL and this function never returns, like it's blocking, right? That's it. You can never eval anything else. Like it will be waiting for this to be over. But sometimes you just want to start your server from your REPL and go on with your life and do other stuff. So this problem is solved. We can actually evaluate, like different evaluations can spawn different threads. So we can do 2 evaluations in parallel or more. So this is an example when all 5 evaluates like in parallel. I can show it actually, but let me see. So let's start socket-repl. Yeah, connect, disconnect, socket-repl, boom, and you can see the tree calculates way faster than sleep finishes, right? Even though I evaluated it second. Yeah, and then what do we have? But okay, yeah. We're still going. Although this maybe should be in conveniences section. Let's move exceptions to conveniences. Let's do watches and extensibility first.
By the way, Nikita, we have 25 minutes to the official time. And of course, if you wish to keep going, then it will be amazing. But just if you wish to care about the clock, then 25 is the official.
Okay, it should speed up from here actually. Okay, so watches are like features that I look def on F. There's a little bit of coding. Do times I10 plus I rand int I. Okay, so this is a function that we write, and we call this function, and and we do, in this cycle, we do thread sleep 100. Okay, so it's like slightly slower, like 1 second to evaluate. And we wait, and this is it. Okay, so what watches are is actually inside any function, almost any function. You can select an expression, go add watch, and now it has this purple thingy around it, right? So what it means is whenever evaluation goes through this place, you will see the current value of this form, right? So let me show you. I evaluate this, and you can see that the counter goes up, right? The purple counter here. This is because like this cycle is run 10 times, and on each iteration the value of E is different. We can do like this. Now it's like slightly randomized values, right? Before between 1 and 10, and the sum. So basically, that's the watches feature. Very proud that it works. Maybe not as useful as I hoped for, because it doesn't really play nice with clj-reload, which we hopefully be covering as well. The last part in REPL, important REPL part, is extensibility. So again, as I said, my design principle was implement as little features as possible and make them like multiply. They have to be orthogonal, so they, one features in combination with other can solve like multiplication of problems, right? Amount of problems. So extensibility is basically what you can define your own functions or actions, and you can define your key bindings that do stuff that you want. Like, so the simplest example of this is reload, right? So you want to reload code. I don't know what reload function is in your code base. In it lives in user/reload, right? So I have this key binding that basically by pressing Command R invokes this part of code. In a namespace user call a function called reload. So that's how I got code reload without like specifically implementing this feature anywhere. It just calls Clojure code. Slightly more complicated example is run test in a namespace. The namespace is a dynamic, so you can use this, right? Even more complicated is evaluate one single test var. So in here we have some light templating language which can add code or symbol in here. So basically, symbol is a name of the var that is in your neighborhood. So this runs test around cursor, right? And this last one is macro expands code. So sometimes you want to see like what this expands to, and I can do macro expand 1, and boom, it actually expands it here without me ever writing like actual macro expand here. This is what happens in like behind the scenes, but I don't write it explicitly, right? The code that like I don't send this form exactly, I send a result of this form and this transformation applied to this form, right? And I see the result of it. So that's been very nice. I've been using it for running tests, for evaluating stuff to the buffer. Like sometimes you run something that outputs a lot of stuff and you want it in a separate buffer. So I have a shortcut for that, for reloading. So yeah, basically a lot of stuff.
There is a little detail here maybe you wish to mention, and that is that there is Clojure Sublimed eval, and there is Clojure Sublimed eval code.
That's a good question. I don't really. This is probably because I copy pasted this code not exactly correct. Or maybe there might be a difference. I don't remember. I can't answer this right now. But you should look at the documentation. Like in README, there is proper document. But I was like copying it from my key bindings and reformatting it. It actually looks slightly different. So yeah, eval code versus eval. Yeah, I don't remember what it is. Let's see if there is eval. Yeah, there is eval as well. I don't know. There's probably some difference. A good reason for it. Okay, so this covers extensibility, right? Very nice feature. And again, I'm glad that I covered a lot of ground with it. Like I can basically mold my environment right now without changing the plugin itself to do stuff that I want to do. And this is ultimately like my vision of Clojure environment, right? Because Clojure is already a very nice programming language, and theoretically, all you need is ability to eval something, and from there, like you can do anything, right? You can modify the string that you send and eval it, and that's basically all you need. That's like some like light implementation of this vision. Okay, another interesting part of this is that we have a Clojure parser. So this is like a small diagram of how the thing is set up, right? So you run your Clojure process separately outside of Sublime Text. in Sublime Text, there's REPL client that runs basically the REPL. This is Python on the left. On the right, you have like REPL server and Clojure in JVM or whatever. Right? The problem here is there is stuff that you need to do on Sublime side before you send it to the Clojure side, right? And that stuff needs to be implemented in Python, basically. There is a solution to it that you always require this pipe, but I didn't really like it. I want stuff that I do to always work. Yeah, I will show you, like, so the like indentation and formatting, for example. I want it to always work without relying on live process somewhere. So I didn't want LSP server. I didn't want a Clojure requirement to run Clojure somewhere. If I open a Clojure file, I should be able to edit it and have a nice formatting without sending it over to the network somewhere. So that led to requirement, like I had to implement Clojure parser in Python, basically, which I did. So on this side, there is like, it's incomplete, but it's basically can parse most of the Clojure, right? Understand what's a form, where is like a definition, where is namespace name comes from, and where are form boundaries and how to do formatting. So for example, let me show you again. I think it's more fun when we see it. So let's disconnect. Let's stop everything. Okay, so right now, this is just Sublime Text. There is nothing in here, right? So if I do like this, this is not nicely formatted, but I do re-indent lines, right? And it formats it for me. Although this is not, no, this is not mine. This is mine. Yeah, this is mine. Yeah. This re-indents lines without going to Clojure, right? So this is done completely in Python. The same thing goes like when I write code like this and I press enter, the place where cursor stands it has to be like according to the rules of the formatting. So for example, if I open one bracket and press enter here, it must be here, right? Because like key value, and then it must go here. So it's only one space in here. But if I do like defen, right, and then F, and I press enter, there are two spaces in here. Like this part is important, and it was very close in default Sublime. Like Sublime can do slight like indentation. Actually, this is what I invoked here is like Sublime built-in indentation. All right, this is what it uses by default, and it uses some heuristics or whatever. It was very close, but it was not exact, and it was very annoying like to use because like in 10% of the times your cursor would be one position off, and you have to correct for it, and you don't, not always, but sometimes. So once I figured it out, it became much nicer to use. Yeah, there's another part, important part, like when sending forms. So for example, see. When I say, like, okay, there was a demo. Okay, let's say I put my cursor in here, right? And I press eval, right? So what should happen, it should, from this position, it should detect that form starts here and ends here. And this is not trivial, right? You need understanding like how code is structured, actually, how what's what. When you run something like, let's see, is there a namespace in here somewhere? No, but basically, if it would say something like ns forms, right? Any eval code in here, it should be evaled in the namespace forms. So somehow my plugin, before sending this to the server, should figure out that I'm currently in the namespace called forms. And this could be like some metadata and some bullshit. It's also not that trivial, right? So unfortunately, like clojure-repl, it sounds cool because most of the stuff you can do on the right side, but you still need some brains and Clojure understanding on the left side as well. And there is no choice but to use the language in which your editor is written, right? For VS Code, I would have to write the same in JavaScript. In Sublime, it's Python, basically. Formatting, padding after switch. Yeah, that's basically right. Yeah. Inconveniences. Okay, so I promised you to show you error printing, and let's do this real quick because this should be inconveniences section. What's going on here is like exceptions in Clojure by default looks very ugly. When we do this, we actually filter out a lot of stuff that comes from the compiler and blah, blah, blah. And we only show the important part here. And we also try to convert namespaces and like this mangled names into nice looking Clojure names. This is also covered in clojure-plus, and eventually these two implementations will converge. But what it shows is that I've been thinking about it for a while, right? And implementing it multiple times because I think this deserves improvement. Okay, another conveniences like toggle comment, right? You can invoke a command that will put this thing in here, and it's actually kind of smart in a sense that if there are multiple forms, it will put multiple things. They don't have to be one line as well. So again, this Clojure understanding helps. Align cursor. So this is what I do all the time. Maybe this should be automatic. Okay, let me see. Let's go here. So you see this not aligned. I press Command A, and now everything is in line. Again, maybe my personal quirk, but I do this all the time. It took me a long time to figure out this could be a command. This is a computer, right? Computer can automate things. Computer can do things for me. And yeah, I did it, and it does. Custom run indicator. So by default, we use Moon. If I can actually show you Moon, I guess, if I comment this out. Oops. I think it should become Moon. Let's do this. No. Let's do this. No, it's something different. Okay. But yeah, you can use whatever indicator you have. Yeah, there's a Moon now. For this font, I added my own custom cat, running cat, and this is the best indicator I've ever had. So because there's a cat running on the right, and now I'm very proud and I'm very happy every time I eval something, even though, like, you know, if I see it run, it means that something is very slow, but the look of the cat makes me very happy. We can do, I close it, but yeah. Interruptions, we show execution time. Again, this is my small contribution to the world of optimization, right? By default, if it's less than 100 milliseconds, it doesn't show execution time, but if it's more, it does show it. And my hope is it will become annoying to you seeing that something takes longer than it should, and eventually we'll fix it. So that's what I'm trying to do. And that covers most of the Clojure Sublimed. How are we doing on time, Daniel?
Yeah, we have 10 minutes to the official time, but of course, if you wish, we can continue or just meet another time or leave it to the future. Anyway,
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, I know. I think it's great because the rest of it will be way less heavy. I think it's more like more fun, and yeah, it will go faster. Okay, Sublime Executor. So actually, I have a couple of plugins for Sublime because I spend a lot of time here. Like this is all plugins. It's not even probably all of them, right? But one of them is Sublime Executor, and basically it answers a question: how do you run a REPL? So you can see, like, sometimes you run it in a separate terminal like this, but it's not always convenient, right? So what I do sometimes, I have a plugin that can go, for example, in here in script folder. This is all executables. So what I do, I say run. No, wait. Execute. Yes, execute or execute. So this is my plugin, right? I press it, and it shows me all the executables you can find. And then I just select one, In this case, we are going to select socket-repl.py here, press it, and it runs basically like small terminal inside in this bottom panel, right? So this is how I usually do stuff, because it's not really always convenient to have two windows. It is nicer to have one. But command can be whatever, like it can run socket-repl, it can build C++, like I use it to build C++ as well, right? But it can do anything the terminal wants. It's basically a terminal. But yeah, if you do println, like in here, for example, where is println? You will see output in here, and it even auto-pops for you when there's new output. So that's how I solve the problem of two windows inside one window. Yeah, you also find that you don't print that often, maybe. But okay, yeah, that's it. Like it's a little bit complicated, so you need to be the fact that it is separate from Clojure Sublimed. Maybe I should merge them together, but right now it's separate because I figured this is universal plugin, right? Anyone can use it to run executables in their projects, not necessarily Clojure projects. That's why it's a separate plugin, but very useful nonetheless. And yeah, runs executables, displays output in bottom panel. Maybe eventually I'll add support for make files, so you can select a command inside the make file or something like that. But no doubt, like it's a very important part of my workflow. So as again, this topic of today is my personal workflow. This is a huge part of it in Sublime, right? The clj-reload. Now we're switching to libraries, right? So yeah, I have like this Clojure integration inside Sublime and like these colors and whatever. It works great, but some stuff. Oh wait, okay, yeah. Let me cover one important part about how Clojure Sublime works, because it is important, but I didn't have a slide about it. So when I told you this is how it works, it is, right? I also told you that Clojure server, socket server, doesn't require a library. It runs inside Clojure. Yeah, and this is, I think, the way it should be. But, so when your client, REPL client, talks to Clojure, it expects some functionality from Clojure side as well. The functionality that doesn't come with Clojure, right? So what happens, how you get this to run is actually called upgrade, like REPL upgrade, right? And what happens is your client, your Python client, connects to Clojure REPL. And Clojure REPL is very basic. It's basically like, it's like this CLJ, but over the socket, right? You actually write to the socket 1 + 2, and you read 3. And I think you even read this shell invitation as well. So it's very non-parsable, like it's not parser friendly. But that's what happens. But like basically the same, but over the socket, right? We don't want that. We want the actual network protocol with like this message format and stuff and guarantees. So what we do, we upgrade our REPL, and the way we do it, we actually send to this pipe that this very naive REPL. We send a lot of forms that implement our socket, right? Stuff. Actually, I think it's in here somewhere. It must be, right? I think it's like concatenates this file, and this file, something like that. I think socket-repl, it just sends this file. Like it's one bulk like payload, right? But because on the other side, what we have is a computer, a REPL that can do whatever, right? We can define functions, we can switch namespaces, we can read input and print to output. So that's what we do, and we start our own little loop that does our like message parsing and implementation yourself. And that's how we get all the functions from our REPL client to the server, right? This is very different. Like the reason why I'm bringing this up, because this is very different from how CIDR works, for example. for Cider, you need a library on the server, right? You need to add it to depth Eden. And that always bothered me because, like, okay, if I'm using Cider, sure, it's fine. But in a team, like, different people might want to use different REPLs, so everyone will insert their favorite library. So what? Like, how is that supposed to work? So I think the cleaner way is if you're implementing a REPL, your REPL brings everything it needs with itself, and it doesn't pollute the depths.eden. So that's how it works under the hood. Okay, clj-reload.
Very question, if you wish, a little question from Andre.
Oh yeah.
Can you show output of bigger inline result like map or vector?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, nice question. Let's see. I think this should be bigger. Okay, so this, like, yeah, it takes one line, you can see it, but what we do have is command control I in my case, and what it does is it expands it like down here, right? So it's basically the same. If it was bigger, like, you know, let's do repeat 10 bin. Okay, and I can expand, I can scroll, I can see. There is a limit to this, so it will be truncated at some point, but mostly you can see now. This is pretty printed, like, this is another important point, right? So pretty printing, like, I think in nREPL, you expect middleware to do this. In my case, because I have Clojure printer and formatter on the Python side, I can get from the Clojure just normal form, like whatever, however it's printed, and format it myself. So this is formatted on the Python side, right? So if I eval this and I get this unformatted result first, and then I expand it, there is no second message to the server. I do everything completely in process in Sublime Text. So yeah, but this is how it works. And I can show you exception as well. Let's see, there must be throw somewhere. Yeah, this is throw, right? And basically it's the same. You see the short version in here. If it's not enough, you press Control I. I think I don't remember the command, but you usually you bind yourself. You bind it yourself, but yeah, you press the same command that expands the result here. Here as well, yeah. This we don't use. What about this? And this is longer exception with some exception info. Oh yeah, this is actually longer form, right? But yeah. And this is the longer form. Okay, this was weird. This expanded strange. Okay, but that's how it looks. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so real quick about libraries that I use, right? Every day. clj-reload. This is a library that replaces tools.namespace and basically does correct reload, like dependency correct reload. So normally, like, there are two ways to work with Clojure code. When you see a def somewhere and you change the code here, you just eval this form and hope that everything picks up the new version of this code. It works often, but not always, right? So Clojure is built to, like, the var is the extra level of indirection. So when you set a new value, every function that will be run from this point and references a var will see new value, right? But if you have not defen, but def like this, right? And you have def like this, the const, and then I say xxs is const, right? I define 0 here, I define 0 here. Here I eval xxx and then 0. Then I change 1 here, not eval second one, eval third form. This doesn't change, right? Because this was defined at the moment when this was evaluated. So this is dependency problem, right? It's not actually trivial. And or you're working on a file or multiple files even. You're done working and now you have to go to each file and click like eval in the correct order, so everything like uses a new version. That might become not very nice, like tiresome. Like you get tired of it. So what clj-reload does is it tracks like modification time of all the Clojure source files, sees which files were changed on disk, tracks the dependencies between them as well. So it sees, like, if you have namespace declaration, it knows that this file depends on that file. So it does all this, unloads the namespaces, the changed namespaces, and loads them back, right? This is what tools namespace did for a long time, and I use that. But then I found like several places where it could be improved. So and they were unresponsive to my issues. Or patches even. So I had to implement my own, and basically it's better version of tools namespace, right? We have working def1s, so it's important. It's a problem with tools namespace that def1s doesn't work as def1s with this system, because you throw away, like unload and throw away the whole namespaces. So there's nowhere for var to reside, and there's actually a pretty interesting technical solution to this problem. We have reload hooks and a lot of stuff, right? I've heard only good things about people who tried it, and it just basically drop-in replacement more or less, but just better, right? And it's being integrated into Cider as far as I know, so it should be available in Emacs as well. Oh, not just Emacs. Cider is not just Emacs, right? Yeah, whatever. clj-reload, recommended a lot. Especially if you have tricky namespaces with stateful objects like systems like mount or integrant, and that have, like, you start a web server, and web server uses a function, right? But then you change a function, but it doesn't change the value inside the web server, so you have to restart the server, like dependencies like this. You come around them all the time. And the last thing, the library that I want to talk about, this is called clojure-plus. This has been my most recent artifact, right? And it's basically first, like, I only put stuff in there that I've been using and doing for a long time. So it's like a refined version of everything I've been doing my Clojure development, all the conveniences, right? And the second part is it's basically, it doesn't really implement new things. It's mostly fixes stuff with Clojure itself. So it's like a nicer way to use Clojure. Clojure is great already, but it can be even greater with if you fix like small stuff, like as far as you can go without forking Clojure itself. There's lots of namespaces. They mostly do one thing each, right? So the core right now, I have if plus and cont plus functions or macroses. And basically the idea is, like, you can do, like, this is inspired by better cont. You can define variables inside cont condition. So you do, like, you did one check, another check, third check, and then you're like, okay, this didn't pass. Now I need a variable. You define it in line, and then continue checks that use this variable, right? Very convenient, like, saves you at least one level of nesting. It's like normally you would start let form in here, and then everything is nested one level deeper than it should be. So very convenient, and I think core should adopt this as well. Like, this is easily the most used macro in my, like, entire career. Like, I like it a lot. I use it all the time. I bring it, like, I used to bring it, like, just by copy pasting it from project to project, but because it wasn't worth, like, the whole library, it's just this macro. But it was so useful, like, I copied it over and over. If plus is slightly newer, it's like it was a trickier to implement, but basically the idea is, again, if you have multiple conditions inside if, sometimes you want to define variables that you want to use later inside the body, for example, right? So if I calculated x here somehow, right, and I did a check on that x, why not can I use it inside x? But it could be not calculable because it's like the first part, like, checked for null or something. So it is tricky, but when you need it, right? And it's really hard to implement. Like, normally it's not even nested ifs. It's like you can't even do it with nested ifs without evaluating, like, calculating x multiple times. So hard lifting inside, but very intuitive, I think, on the outside. Clojure print is a library inspired by library Taggy, and basically solves the problem of Clojure printing, right? Clojure, for some reason, prints objects very verbosely. And like if they were like just Java objects, it would be okay with me probably, but it also does it for like very common use objects, like atoms or files, right, or namespaces or transients. Like you use them all the time. They're part of Clojure already, right? So it's not like Clojure doesn't know what atom is, or it's not like atom is going anywhere in the next version of Clojure. It's like it's here to stay, right? So it only makes sense for Clojure to have a nice printing and reading implementation of it. But it doesn't. For some reason, there is no like atom prints like this. Like there's some status which has no relevance to atom at all. There's a value which you have to hunt for. Like basically atom 1, 2, 3 is how it should like roughly look like. There's not much going on. It should be as short as this. But instead you get the whole line, including the address in the memory. The same goes for file namespace, and like a lot of other objects, there's like a list of 20 or something that I identified. So Clojure print namespace basically fixes this. We implement very nice, short, concise representation for common Clojure and Java objects like files, paths, URLs, atoms, transients, I don't know, everyday stuff, nothing fancy at all, but the basics, right? It's very configurable, so I know this might be controversial. So unless you include this namespace and install it explicitly, you will not get it. So you can always install, uninstall. I'm not sure about uninstall. You can install it, right? You can configure like, do you want only printing or you want to read it back as well? So there's an option. If you type #atom123, it will get converted to atom. There's option to do that as well. Yeah, very configurable, up to you. But yeah, I just like the no-brainer move is just enable it and just enjoy nice printing representation. That's I think what everybody should be doing. Clojure error fixes error printing. It's kind of the same as I showed you in Clojure Sublimed. And in fact, Clojure Sublimed, I think I will copy this implementation to Clojure Sublimed at some point. Basically, the problem is when you print an exception in Clojure, it prints like this, which is terrible in my opinion. Like it's really hard to see what's going on. There is like a lot of noise and this doesn't really make sense. There is like a message is repeated twice. The type is for some reason nested inside via. Yeah, it's really strange. And the yeah. And the names are not Clojure friendly as well. So again, this is a problem, right? Clojure should know about Clojure. It's not like this is a known language that tries to like it's not like it tries to print Kotlin or whatever. Clojure knows about Clojure. Clojure knows how it what it compiles to. So instead of showing like this Java stack trace, we can be showing nice stack trace that looks like Clojure code basically. And this is what we do, right? So again, you need to install it explicitly. There are some options to configure, like do you want to use color? Do you want to reverse it? Or a few options. But basically what it boils down to is like it prints exception nicely, right? So we have Clojure names here, like Java names remain Java names because we can't do anything about them. But see, like for example, let's see, Clojure main $main do invoke, right? And it's repeated twice because that's how compiler works, right? So what happens here is actually Clojure main/main is invoked once, but it looks like it has $ and 2 stack trace elements inside Java stack trace. We converted back to like the way it would look in Clojure. So it looks like it actually came from Clojure. It has the same shape and syntax as it did in Clojure. So when you just match it, like what I wrote and what blew up, you can see the match, right? It's much more natural to see it this way. And it's much cleaner too, because like all this nonsense about like invoke static, you don't really need it. This is like mechanics of how Clojure functions are invoked. What's important is that Clojure function is invoked and in which file it is invoked, like which line, right? So that's what we do. Use of color, I think it's very, in my opinion, very tasteful, but it helps a lot, again, to visually separate stuff. And I've been enjoying it for a few weeks since I wrote it a lot. I'm very happy whenever exception like this pops up in my stack trace, and I'm like, okay, I can finally see what's going on instead of looking at this nonsense. Clojure test is like super fresh, like the latest I implemented, right? It's basically a test runner. It's not even a test runner. It's like, Clojure test, like just normal Clojure test. It's basically improves output of Z with, it captures output first. Like this is the most annoying part of Clojure test runner. When you run your tests, everything it prints is printed to the screen, right? Which generates a lot of noise when tests actually pass. Like for passing tests, the tests that are correct, you shouldn't see any output. There's no point, right? Yeah, we have improved reporting a little bit. So this is how it looks in default Clojure test. This is how it looks in our version. So this is like the pass to the test. We actually show like expected and actual value separate instead of inline like here, which if this were like two deeply nested maps, it would be really hard to compare them. Here it's easier to compare them. Is there a color in this? I don't remember if I use color. I don't think so. No. Yeah. Filter stack traces. Oh, this should be. No. Okay. Yeah. Filter stack traces. We just remove stuff that was used to just to run tests, which is not relevant to the test failure at all. And finally, the clojure test.run is my favorite function now because for some reason, again, probably because Clojure test is very old, it has 4 functions to run test. So there is one that takes var, one that takes namespace, one that takes regexp, and force one. I don't remember why there are force one. Maybe it's the one that just runs everything. Probably, I don't know. So anyway, so 4 functions, they all called run test, all tests, retest, something like that, like run var test. Very confusing, really hard to remember. So Clojure test.run is one function that can accept everything. Like you can pass regexp, namespace, var, whatever. If you don't pass anything, it will run everything. Just to resolve this confusion. Clojure Walk is just better implementation, or Clojure+ Walk is better implementation of Clojure Walk. Clojure Eden and cloj-replr are planned. Like Eden is fast Eden, it's a library, it's a separate library right now, but I think it should belong in Clojure+ because it's basically drop-in replacement for Clojure.eden, which is like 5 times faster. So Clojure Eden is not optimized at all, and I wrote a very optimized version of Reader. Clojure+ REPL, probably just a REPL that also like socket-repl that outputs port, because it's very useful for connecting to random ports. And debug is, again, planned. I have it in a different library, but I want to bring it here as well, because this is like, I told you that Clojure con+ is one of the most used macros by me, and this #p, again, inspired by a library #p, is one of the most used debug tools that I use, right? And basically the idea is you put it in front of anything, and when executed, it will print the value, the form and the value to the output. So it's basically a real fast way to pick into values inside some long-running functions. So instead of like you could add println, but println doesn't return the value. This like easier to write and return the original value, so you don't lose the value. It can continue executing. And I do this a lot as well. Whenever I need to see like what's going on, like what's this map, the argument or whatever. Okay, let me see if I have /p here. I can actually, okay, let's do experiments. Yeah, I see, like, for example, like here I'm debugging like what the execute is returning, and here I am printing what this map triple returns. So yeah, use it all the time, very useful. Not yet in Clojure+, but really, really soon. It's just in a different library for me right now. That should be all brought together. So that's about it. That concludes it. So we looked at Sublime Text, Clojure Sublime, Sublime Executor, clj-reload, and Clojure+. And this is the bulk of my workflow, basically. I also have CLJ template, which is just a folder that I copy when I need to create a new project, and it's not integrated or published even. It just have all the folders already pre-created. That's basically how I use Clojure, how I write everything in Clojure. And yeah, you can find all of this on GitHub Tonsky, and follow my Mastodon or my website. That's about it. Any feedback or questions if you want?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nikita. Many thank you messages in the chat. And Andre says that, thank you for clj-reload. We replaced tools, namespace REPL with it, and it is a big improvement. I'm saying thank you for Clojure-plus for the error messages, which are now part of our Clay notebook tool that uses them. And yeah, if you have some time, Nikita, then I see most people are still here, and maybe we can discuss a few things if there are some questions.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to discuss, of course.
Yeah, so many insights about usability and about tool making. That was really, really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a question about is there a feature that I want to port to Sublime from another plugin? It's a really great question off the top of my head. Not really. Let me actually check. So I have a to-do list, and there is Clojure Sublime. Switch profiles based on project. Maybe that's most important ones. Yeah, okay. So probably the biggest feature that I miss in Clojure Sublime is go to source, right? So like if you have a project and you use a library, I want to click and you see a function called to that library. I want to click and see the source of that file. Like whenever it is, like I wanted to unpack the jar file and open it in Sublime, basically. That's probably the feature that I miss the most. The way I'm coping with it is I just clone everything I use whenever I need to look at the source and add it to the Sublime as a project and use search. But basically that, yeah. There's also multiple REPLs, so that's a feature that's been requested. I don't need it personally, but if you work, for example, in a project that has backend and frontend, and you have CLJ and CLJS, right? Sometimes you want to have both REPLs running, and you can't really do it with Clojure Sublime right now. There is one REPL per window. So yeah, 2 REPL is not possible, but one day maybe we'll have that.
Yeah. By the way, Nikita, for now, would you prefer people to use the voice or the chat? Which one is better for you?
Anything, or whatever.
Yeah, so yeah, if people wish to say something, you can use your voices now. And we are in this last part of the meeting. And yeah, maybe one thing we could talk about is extending Clojure Sublime, right? So you have this way of adding key bindings connected to evaluating some Clojure code. And I was using that today with some functions that would send something to be visualized in the browser. And then I'm wondering, how can I share this with users? Should I just share it as a file and tell the users to add this to the configuration? Or do you have something in mind about making Clojure Sublime extensible?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, right? I don't know. It's really good question. I've been thinking about it actually a little bit, because right now I don't really think that that Sublime Text extensibility is like super great, right? You can write custom key bindings, and basically you can share it's a piece of JSON that you can share. Yes, that's probably like the more practical way today to share snippets, like you said, right? But but you can't create actions this way, for example. So sometimes I just want to give a name, like like run all tests. I want it to be an action that I can invoke from action palette, because I don't want a key binding. Like my memory is limited. I don't have key binding for everything, but I can always search in action palette. And you can't really easily do that. You have to create the whole plugin with a Python file. So maybe there is a way to improve the Clojure, the Sublime Text extensibility mechanism. So I imagine that should be some files that you can just write, like in Lisp we have, in Emacs we have what, init.el or something, just a file you open and put whatever you want in there, right? And it's just available in your Emacs, or at least that's how I imagine it. And I think it should be the same way in Sublime somehow. But that's my current thinking, basically.
Yeah. You're imagining maybe a future Eden file, right? Because it is just JSON, so it could be Eden for Clojure users. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, and another thing is this collection of scripts that you showed us of the executor package, where you have your scripts and somehow maybe the users wish to use your scripts, and I'm unsure about how this can be shared.
Yeah, but the scripts are usually very basic. It's like clj -x like server.main or something like that, or -m server.main. It's like super simple. It just they exist so I can invoke them from the command palette. Like basically, okay. So the reason why I have, let me share the screen again, just so I can point at something. So like every project I have like a folder called script, right? And in this folder, usually some bash files, like this is as far as complicated as they get, right? It's usually something like this. But the reason I have this folder is that so I don't have to remember the specific command, because on every project they are slightly different. Sometimes it's clj -x-def, sometimes it's -m-def, right? And I don't want to remember this. I just want to select like from a menu like this. So this is a collection of very simple commands. The same problem can be solved with a makefile. So I think on like on instant we use makefile instead, right? So it's a makefile, and basically these are all the options you can choose. And then, again, you can see they're very basic, like bootstrap OSS is just clojure -x OSS bootstrap, or def is just clojure -m def run. So yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, so yeah, I'm not sure they're worth sharing outside of your project, right? Like this is a very project specific, what I'm saying.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions by anybody?
Are you going, Daniel? They're going to present your workflow, like you wanted to show how you use.
I can do it in a moment,
Yeah.
even though I can also do it another time. So now we have you here, so maybe it's good use of your time. But yeah, I could share a little piece of Sublime workflow, and maybe that's good. Yeah, maybe a little thought is that, we really care about Sublime. A few of us are really thinking about how to make it easy for new users to begin with Clojure. And, editors like VS Code, they have all these jumping pop-up messages, and that's actually not so easy. And Sublime is maybe the cleanest thing to look at in a way. And if we could somehow make it that things will just work for a new user, then it means a lot. And we'll keep experimenting with that, and share with you our scripts, and maybe you'll have some thoughts about how we can improve that. And yeah, so maybe I'll share the screen for a moment, and just practice using it. And yeah, thank you for everybody for staying beyond the official time. So yeah,
yeah, there's one quick question if I can answer before you start. The question is like, what key bindings I use apart from eval or reload? And basically what I use is, yes, eval form, eval file, or buffer, reload, run tests, and format, reformat, reindent. That's the key bindings I use. And Control-I, which is like expand, like the expand evaluation results.
I have a stupid question. I actually tried Sublime so maybe a month ago, and I like the idea of simplicity, how it works, how fast is this. But there is a feature I really missed. When I put the cursor right after parentheses, holding the Shift and Control and arrow key, I can select everything which is inside of parentheses, even if it contains several lines. Is there something like that in Sublime?
Yes, actually,
Because it's really convenient, especially if I want to select entire expression which contains, for example, 10 lines.
Yeah. Let me show. Okay, so I have it rebinding, rebound, Control Shift M. Okay, let me close this. No, it still runs. Oh. Basically, Control Shift M should do that, right? But for some reason, I'm not sure what's going on, but even if I disable it, it still invokes this command. Maybe I should restart it actually, because no, it's but normally it goes to the next parenthesis. So if I would stay here and you click Control M, it's go to the next parenthesis, and if you add Shift, it will go to with selection basically.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And another question, but it's not related to this topic actually, about RAM and Humble UI. I tried RAM, and it turns out that it uses pretty old version of React. And the question is it really maintained?
No.
No?
No.
And do you have any plans to continue develop it? And the same question about Humble UI. What is the status?
Yeah. So no, RAM is on pause because I'm not really doing web development at Clojure anymore. And it's been out of date. So I think this UIX is a more modern version of React. Like try UIX, it's from Roman. Roman tried to support RAM and upgraded to new React, and then he ended up writing his own thing, and he actually maintains it. I think I saw announcement today or something about new version. Humble UI is on pause, but to that I plan to return. Yeah, whenever I have more free time. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you for the answer.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So if there aren't any questions now, then maybe I'll share the screen really briefly and look into something. And yeah, so what we wish to do is demonstrate how we do some data visualizations using Clojure Sublimed and Clay. Clay is a notebook tool and also a tool for visual data exploration. I think you see my screen now. And here in the Clojures collection, we can search for Clay, right? So that's Clay. And yeah, let us create a little project. Right, so in this project, yeah, maybe let us open Clojure Sublime. Open Sublime Text in this project and in this directory. And oh, yeah, maybe I should create a new file and save it as deps.eden. You see, I'm learning. Maybe there are better ways to do that. I'm just, using basic things. So let us create a deps.eden file, and our dependencies will be only Clay, which is this data visualization tool that we use nowadays. Oh, can I don't know how to close. Oh yeah, I can move that. Yeah, thanks. Right, so that's our dependencies file. And we'll also add an alias to run Clay, which is one way to use these things. There are a few ways, and that's not our focus today. So let us call it Clay, and it will just have these main ops. I think we do it like that, -m. This means we will be able to run Clay from the command line, which is, a typical use case for some new users. So I'll just include the main namespace for the main function. So I think it is like that, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and now when we run, here's our directory, we only have the deps.eden file. So when we run clj -m for this alias Clay, and it should be running this main namespace we have here, if I didn't have any mistake. And yeah, so that's one way to use the Clay tool. And you see it did create an nREPL server we can connect to from our editor. And also it is watching for file changes in the notebooks directory, which is a new directory which was just created. That's, one experience that some of us like for, this kind of literate programming, creating notebooks from namespaces. So we'll create a small notebook file. Oh, so new file, and I'll save it under the notebooks directory, and maybe let us call it example.clj. So, right, so you see now it is rendered in the browser and Clay is listening. So maybe let us call it namespace example, as we usually do. And we can add some code and save. And every time we save, the notebook updates. So that's unrelated to Sublime, to Clojure Sublime, but I'm happy we have a good editor like Sublime, which is very user-friendly and simple to use and clean to the eye. So that's one of the beginner-friendly experiences that we care about. And, these days we're discussing it a lot mostly in the Zulip chat, about how we create these notebooks experiences. And one of the ideas was that we can mark some parts with white space. So this way we will know that this only part needs to be visualized. And we're exploring that, but that is not about Clojure Sublime. What I wish to do now is to integrate Clay into Clojure Sublime so we can have a fuller REPL experience, right? So first, let us connect to the REPL so we can use it, right? So I do Clojure Sublime connect to raw REPL, and it already knows the port and should be connected now. So let us see, can we evaluate? Yes, we can evaluate, right? And so, right, so we have it running. And now we will look into our key bindings, right? So I'll search for, I open the command panel and I say Clojure Sublimed Clojure Sublimed key bindings, right? So now we have another editor window with the key bindings of Clojure Sublime. And on the left, we have the recommended key bindings. As far as I understand, correctly, if I'm wrong, Nikita, I think these are like recommendations for, the actions that you recommend users to add. And then on the right, I put them in my key bindings map. And so, for example, we have Control-Alt-Enter to evaluate like that. Then I added a little bit, as you explained earlier. So now control comma will mean to eval the transformed code. And we needed transform because we wish to take the actual code, this one, and pass that to another function of Clay that will visualize that in the browser. So now when I click control comma inside the form, then it is visualized in the browser. So maybe one last thing we can do is make a little data visualization. So, we can see how we use Clay this way. So I'll close the key bindings window, unless maybe there is any question. Does anybody wish to say or comment or ask anything about it before I continue? No? Great. So I'll close this. And what we usually do for data visualizations is that we have this standard nowadays that we call kindly. And this allows us to say in what kind of way things should be visualized. So for example, we can say something is of kind hiccup. And with kind hiccup, we can have, div and a paragraph or maybe a list of things, something like that, right? And because it is annotated with hiccup, which is just a way to add metadata, right? Clay and other tools will know how to visualize that. So now when I click control comma here inside, then it fails. Oh, let's see why it fails. But first, before we try to understand why it failed, we see that we use Clojure-plus for, prettier error messages. So I'm really glad about being able to use Clojure-plus. You see, I need to scroll to see the actual line numbers. I think it makes sense because usually I don't care about them. And this cleaner way to see here, so much nicer, I believe. So that's Clojure-plus in action. So I forgot to evaluate the main namespace definition with the new require. So now I did evaluate it. And when I call Clay again with control comma, then we get the hiccup visualized. Hiccup is just this way to visualize HTML. Maybe let us do another thing. Find hiccup SVG with circle. Yeah, or maybe just a few circles. Yeah, maybe just one circle for now. So maybe 25, 50, and radius will be 10, and color, I think, fill will be something like that, right? And why doesn't it work? Oh, right. So I'll try to. Oh, right. Oh, yeah. See why? Why should be 50, right? So this doesn't work because of the position of the circle, maybe. Oh.
I have one letter too many in fill, I think.
Oh, thank you,
It was 7 characters.
Oh, yeah. Now I did undo it. I don't know. Redo. Control Y. Oh, never mind. I lost it. Yeah, thank you. So I'll bring it back quickly so we can have a circle. So this was evaluated already. Never mind. Kind hiccup. SVG. Circle. CX. CY. So let us have it. Oh.
The circle, you made a typo in circle.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Great. So we have right. Yeah, thank you. Right. And now we can explore. And I'm so glad about, this dynamic experience where we can explore. And I'll try to get it right. Right. So, oh, yeah. Sorry. Right. So we can explore things with color.
You should change circle to fill.
Oh, fill. Yeah. Right. Yes. So yeah. Better now. Right, so this is my data visualization workflow, and today I was drawing so many circles this way, and you see we hope we can make something like that just work for a new user who wishes to explore Clojure with some data visualization. And with Sublime, it is maybe the closest experience we have at the moment to an editor which has a good Clojure experience, but is actually, you know, unsurprising, just works, simple and clear, and without all the decorations around. So I really appreciate Clojure Sublime. And yeah, so you see, I hope to keep asking you, Nikita, about ways to extend it and maybe how to configure and so on, so we can make it easier for users. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, any feedback, welcome. And yeah, because I made it mostly for myself, and sometimes people come with asking for things that are really easy to do, but I just didn't know somebody needs them, you know, so yeah, happy to add. You're muted.
Oh, thank you. Maybe in a moment we will stop the recording, and some people may wish to stay longer and chat about anything after the recording is over. But unless there is any question or anything somebody wishes to say, maybe we'll ask Nikita to conclude, unless Nikita, you wish to share more things today, and then we can stop the recorded part.
No, I think it's fine. Yeah, thanks for coming. I hope it was helpful. And I've been developing Clojure Sublime in the dark for a long time. Like I mostly use it myself. I know I've heard that other people use it, but I've never met like actual users. So yeah, it's very reassuring and yeah, makes me more motivated basically to work on it when I see how people appreciate different parts of it. So yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you. It was mind-opening. You know, just hearing you explain the way you built it and all the little dilemmas and their solutions. That was so much to think about now. Great. So we will say goodbye to the recording, and to our listeners, see you on the next times.